you'll state your name.
Willie Barton, better known as Johnnie.
Okay. And where are you originally from?
Gilmer County.
Okay. And when were you born?
When?
Yes, sir.
November 1919.
Okay. So, what was life like around Gilmer County before the war started?
Well, it was pretty quiet back then. You didn't hear much of what was going on. Didn't have no television, stuff like that. I was raised on a farm, and about the only time I got out was on Saturday afternoon. We go to town and back, and that was the rest of the time work through the week and after we got out of school. And I only went to school through the 8th grade. That's where I went to school.
Okay. So, do you remember what it was like when you heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, I heard it on the radio. And I don't remember now just what I was doing, but anyway, I heard about the attack Pearl Harbor. And I know my dad was up at the barn, and I went out and told him that the Japanese had invaded Pearl Harbor.
Okay. How did you feel when you heard about it?
Well, at the time, I didn't think too much about it right at the time. I mean, as far as bothering me is concerned.
Okay, so tell me about going into the military. What prompted you to go into the military?
How that?
What prompted you to go into the military?
I was drafted.
Okay.
I drafted, went in in April 9th, 1942. I trained. I went overseas. I went from Normandy Beaches, Omaha. I walked, crawled, run, rode back into tanks, all the way into Germany. I got wounded in Worm, Germany, but I saw a lot of things in between Normandy Beach and Worm, Germany. I remember one time General Patton, General Eisenhower ordered him to drive up to a town, big town, I forget the name of it, and wait till he could get another division up. But Patton, he had a head of his own, and he sent word up to the front, had his man to come up the front. He wanted the oldest man up there. It didn't matter about his rank. He just wanted the oldest person up there. So they come and got me. I was the oldest one up there.
How old were you at the time?
I was 24 at the time. And I was talking about the one had the most service up on the front. So I went back, they took me back, and I went in and saluted Patton. And he said, "Are you the feller I sent for?" I said, "Yeah, I guess." He said, "Well, you're not what I was looking for." I said, "How's that?" He said, "I was looking for a big, rough-looking feller like me." He said, "No wonder you've been up there so long, since you're so little they can't hit you." And that was, so he told me, he said, "I want you to take at least 50 men. I want you to drive a wedge right in that city, just like that's right where we're going to invade it from." He said, "I'm going to split my army." He said, "We're going to go in on the inside, on each side." And he said, "I'm going to take that city." He gives the radio man orders not to answer the radio, if anybody radio. So that's what we done. We went there and we took the town, he did, after I drove a wedge in the front of it. He told the operator, radio, he said, "Now you call back radio, the headquarters, tell them I took it to one division, ask them if they want me to give it back to them."
So, you say you landed on Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you tell me about that? You know, how was I coming in?
They went in on landing barges. I'm not sure that's what they call them. That's why they're landing barges. And they about 48 men, anywhere from 48 to 50 men on the boat, depending on how much equipment you had. And when they wouldn't get, they run deep in the water. They wouldn't get quite to shore. So when you got grounded out, the front end fell down, and you hit the water. You had to wade out. I think there was two in the one I was in. Two of us made it on the beach. Out of the 48, was on the one I was on. There's a fur up down beaches, them landing boards far as you could see. But they'd been there a long time, and they had their artillery zeroed in, some out in the water and some on the beach. And and they landed, and as soon as they land, the ones that wasn't sunk or able to maneuver, they'd back out, and here'd come another wave, and just kept on coming wave after wave. And so we was there on the beach, and the radio man radioed back, and he said there's two kinds of men on the beach, the dead and them gonna die. And so I think, well, I remember there was a big long hill where we went up. And well, I remember probably it was 3 days of fighting our way up that hill. And just dead men laying everywhere. Machine guns that hit you, hit right down a burst of machine gun, you could just feel the sand stuff hitting you, or the bullets was that close to you. It was rough.
So how'd you feel while all this was going on?
Scared. Anybody says he ain't scared, something wrong.
Okay. And what'd you do after that?
We just kept it going. Went on up through St. Lo, up through there. And one other time that I remember real well, we fought the Germans in a wooded area all day, trying to drive them out of this wooded area, but they put up stiff resistance, and we didn't get them drove out there that day. It come dark while we dug in. Next morning, we was expecting to encounter them right where we went, but during the night they pulled back to higher ground. So when we come out of the woods into an old open field, I know where there's an old pasture field or an old meadow or something, but as soon as we come out, they started shelling us. And of course we hit the ground right now, and there was a great big man on this side, another big one over here, and I was right in between them. And after a while, as a shell hit close enough, it killed both of them, one on each side of me. And my head just felt like there was a steel band around it. And my muscles, I couldn't control them for the next 2 or 3 hours. If I hit anything I was supposed to, it would have been an accident, because I wasn't studying. But my head just felt like it's a steel band around it. But now it killed both of them, one on each side, and they're just big enough. They sheltered me enough, I guess. That I can tell you lots of different times. We had that one time going up through France. The quartermaster, they was to keep the front line supplied with food, ammunition, whatever they needed. For days, they done pretty good. We get at least one meal a day. That's about all we got, one meal of C rations or K ration one. And one time we run out in there before daylight. They come to just, we had to divide, 2 of us had to divide a C ration. That's all we had. So we fought that day, that night, and the next day, mid-morning, we overrun a farmhouse. And I thought, well, we'll be able to get something to eat there. But the Germans, they took everything back. They had, except they had a dozen eggs and about a handful of old cow butter, saying it was strong enough you could swim a river and back and still a walk. But I wanted that dozen eggs, and they didn't want to let me have them. I thought I was an old man, about 85, 90 years old, and I told them they could speak English. I told him, I said, I could take it and go, but I said, if a higher-up's got a hold of it, I'd be in trouble. I said, I'll buy them. And the fellow said, well, how much do you give for them? I said, well, I've got $16 in American money. Amounts to what amounts to American money, $16. So I give $16 for that dozen eggs and a little bit of old strong cow butter. So we they're fighting too heavy, couldn't fix anything there, so I took them with me. And we fought all that day, but I thought it'd run on to something else, another house or something, but we didn't. We didn't make very much headway that day. So along in the evening, pretty while before dark, we run just about out of ammunition. I think I had 5 shells left in my gun, that's all I had. And some of the others didn't have any more. So we radioed back and told them the headquarters that we was out of ammunition, out of food. So they said, well, dig in and hope that the Germans didn't know we was out of ammunition and stuff, and they'd get us up some after dark. So waiting there, all my men that I had, I only had 11 men left. And I told one of them, there's a barn set over in sight over there, and I told that one fella if he could crawl down and get in a low place there, he'd go to that barn and see if he could find a bucket or something, or maybe boil them eggs in. And so he went over and he couldn't, all he could find was an old scoop shovel. So he brought that old scoop shovel back, and we tried to clean it up the best we could. And they had little round things about the size of a little bigger than a baseball. You could light them under there. They didn't make no blaze or no smoke, but they put out heat. So we took them and took that old scoop shovel and got down the foxhole there, and we fixed them eggs that way. Took a bayonet off a rifle. We scrambled them eggs like that, and we divided them up between the 12 of us. The next day, then they brought us up some food. Some days you fight, some days without anything to eat at all, but most usually you get one meal.
Excuse me. So while you were going through all this, what was going through your mind? I mean, did you feel this was a good thing that you all were doing, or what did you think?
Well, after you're up there a long time, you get to you hate about everything. Of course, you're scared. You think about home. You think about what you're going to do if you make it through, you know, get back, stuff like that. And you try to do anything you can to stay alive. That's the most important thing on your mind, I believe, try to stay alive. You go lots of times without any sleep. I know one time there, we'd been pinned down for maybe 2 days, couldn't move. You know, the weather was bad, the airplanes couldn't fly. And so we got orders that the next morning it'd be pouring the rain down, be real foggy, and before daylight to get out and try to run them out. So that's what we done. It was real foggy. We got out there and we run them. Germans didn't like cold steel very good. If you got close to them, they didn't like that. And anyway, we run them out of there. And we went to where we were supposed to that day, dug in, and we had heavy casualties. And they sent us up some recruits, greenhorns, and had one nice looking blonde-headed feller there. He looked intelligent, and I took him, for I'd lost my buddy, I took him and I sent the others on down the line where they needed them. And I said to him, when did you have anything good to eat? He said, I had a good meal just before I come up here. I said, when did you have a good night's sleep? He said, oh, I had a good night last night. I said, well, I ain't had any sleep for 2 or 3 days. haven't had hardly anything to eat for 2 days. I said, I'm gonna get down here in this foxhole. I said, I'm gonna sleep 2 hours. I said, you gotta watch. You let me sleep 2 hours if nothing don't happen. I said, all right. He said, you go sit down there in that water? I said, yeah. He said, well, I've heard tell about you've been up here so long and shell-shocked and half crazy. He said, you must be one of them. I said, well, you just watch me. So I said, and as soon as I got a little used to the water, I just went to sleep. And he didn't mean to shake me and shake me. He said, get up, Sergeant, get up, get up. He said, they're coming. I said, who's a coming? He said, the Germans is a coming. I got up there, staggered around, tried to get hold of my rifle, and I took my head up out of the foxhole. I said, where are they at? He said, don't you hear them? All I heard was a truck climbing the hills back where somebody's supposed to be bringing them up ammunition or something, you know. I said, well, that there's way over there bringing them up something. I said, how long have I been asleep? He said, 15 minutes. I said, well, now I want to sleep some more. I said, I've got to sleep a little. I ain't had no sleep. So I sat back down there and I went to sleep, and a little bit he woke me up again. He said, you hear that there German holler? I said, yeah, I hear him. He said, why you want me to tell him? I said, I don't know. I don't speak German. I don't know what he's saying. He said, I do. I said, well, what's he saying? He said, why don't you Yankees come up here and have some coffee with us? But why you want me to tell him? I said, tell him we'll be up there in the morning, but it won't be for coffee. You got a few kicks like that once in a while. Not very often.
I didn't ask you this earlier, but what unit were you in?
I trained with the 84th Division. I trained with them in the States, but they picked out, I believe it was 100 out of that division, and we went ahead. We went overseas before the 84th did. We went over there, but the 84th didn't come over till a little while after the invasion of France there. But there was 100 of us went ahead. So they always just figured me by the 84th all the way through. I fought with the 84th after they come over. I fought with the British. I fought some with the French. I didn't like to fight with the French. Didn't like them.
Why is that?
They just wasn't good soldiers. Now the Limeys, they done pretty good. I didn't mind fighting with them, but I didn't like the French.
Okay. And what rank did you attain while you were in the military? What rank did you work yourself up to while you were in the military?
Staff sergeant.
Okay.
Staff sergeant. I got out of Purple Heart. I got Bronze Star. I got a cluster. Then I got European Theater Badge, Pacific Badge, and Good Conduct Medal, and I was perfect with a rifle. Got a badge for that.
Okay. You say you were in the Pacific as well? You said you got the Pacific badge as well?
Yeah.
Did you serve in the Pacific?
I was over there. I was there 3 months. Back then, you got out on a point system. I had enough points to get out after I was wounded and got out of the hospital. I was in the hospital 45 days. I got out of there. I had enough points to get out, but they said they didn't have no way back to the States. So they sent me to the Pacific. Went all that way over, and I stayed there 3 months. And they called, Colonel called me in there one day, and he said, you know you got enough points to get out? I said, yeah, I knew that a long time ago. He said, well, he said, tell you what, he said, I've got a place up here on the hill. He said, you go up there, and said, the only thing you have to do is see if they keep the ground cleaned up, keep the barracks cleaned up, and that's all you have to do. And I thought, boy, that'll be swell. was for the first week or two, but there was no place to go, nothing to do, and I got so bored I didn't know what to do. And one night about midnight, Corporal come in and woke me up, and he said, "We got your ride home. If you can get down there and get your stuff turned in by 30 minutes. I said, "Well, I'll be there." So I went down there, turned my stuff in, got come back into California. They discharged me then, sent me to Fort Bragg, and discharged me then from Fort Bragg.
Okay. Now, you said you got wounded in Germany, correct? You said you were wounded in Germany.
Yeah, we're in Germany.
Can you tell me a little bit about what happened?
We had a street fight, and I got wounded, and they put me, bandaged me up in wintertime in January, and they put me, laid under a table in an old man, old woman's house, and had no blankets, no aspirins, no nothing like that. And the old man, old woman, they didn't want me there because they knew if the Germans happened to break through our lines, why, found me there, they'd kill them the same as they did me for having me there. But stayed there all night that night, and the next day, and fighting was heavy, they couldn't get us out of there. And then that night, they got us out of there and loaded us on a freight train, old freight train. And we started back in to France, back to Le Havre. And we got back to Le Havre, and the hospital ship was in England. Had to wait then till it come back over, picked us up, took us back across there. That's the only time I got seasick. I was already sick, and I got seasick going back across the English Channel. And we got over there then. He was took them 12 hours to get the bandages soaked loose. And then at that time poison had set in, and they give me penicillin shots every 3 hours for 12 days. And I got to lie, hated to see him coming with a needle.
I can imagine. So, what else could you tell me about your time over in Europe?
Time was in Europe.
Yeah.
There's one thing I think a lot about. We lost 30,000 casualties just to driving the Germans out of France, and that was just in France. And you know, today they're in France, and then they don't want to help us in Iraq. I don't think much of that. I think the way we help them, they ought to help us. That as far as the people was concerned, now up in Belgium, I like the Belgian people. One other thing I'll tell you, we fought across the highlands up there in Belgium, and they said one night it was 40 below zero. It was all cold. They said 40 below zero. Every time somebody get killed bigger than I was, right smart, I'd have some help me. I'd take him on. I'd get his shirt or whatever he had on. But when we got across the mountain, warmed up, I had 7 wool shirts on.
Wow.
Trying to keep them freezing. One night I believe I'd have froze. I was sick anyhow, I had a fever. But we went through a town, and I found a candle that was still in the package. Didn't look like it ever been tampered with or anything. So I don't know why, I just put that in my pocket. And that one night it was so cold, we dug a little square hole back in her foxhole and put that in, put a bandana around on the outside of it so the light wouldn't shine. And we could warm hands a little bit by that. I'd be out of froze that night, hadn't been for that. I was already partly sick anyway. That made it bad. I can tell you one great experience that I had before I went overseas.
Okay.
Had a boy in there from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania there. He I noticed when we went through training here, he never went nowhere. Only he go to church on Sunday morning. That's the only time he went anywhere. And so we trained, been together a long time, or good training. One Saturday, why, everybody got passes to go. I was broke. I didn't have no money, so I couldn't go nowhere. And I said to him, I said, why don't you go up to get you a pass and go to town, have some fun like the other men? He said, oh, I couldn't do that. I said, well, I don't know why. I said, you don't go nowhere to spend your money without you give some to the church or send some home. I know you got money. He said, oh, it ain't that. He said, if I tell you why, he said, would you listen? I said, well, I don't have anything else to do. I guess I'll listen. So he sat down there on the bunk, and he said, when I was a young feller, just a young teenager, he said, I got with the wrong crowd. And he said, we started stealing little stuff. And he said, pretty soon, he said, that wasn't enough. We wanted big stuff. So he said, one night we went after big stuff, and he said, we got it. He said, on the way back, he said, the boys are driving, two brothers, he said that we was flying, trying to get away from the cops, and he said, we got into an argument over which one was going to take what of that there expensive stuff. And he said, they was going to take the good and leave me the bad. And he said, I wouldn't have no part of it. So he said, they opened the door, and he said, they shoved me out. And he said, I landed in a ditch. And he said, my sister lived in California. Said she was going to go to New York, and she was going to come through Pennsylvania and see me on her way. Said she seen, about daylight, he said she seen a man laying in a ditch. So he said she stopped and to see if he needed to call the law or ambulance or what. And said when she came back, she seen it was me. So he said she got me to the hospital. Said when I got out of the hospital, said she took me to California with her. And he said she started taking me to church. Well, he said, I got under conviction. He said, I got saved. He said, I was saved then. He said, I'm saved now. And he said, I'm not going to do anything that would contrary Jesus. And he said, that's just the way it is. And we went overseas then, and we fought alongside beside there for a long time. And we got surrounded. We was in there about 3 days, and with 1,000 of us went in down in this town. But at the end of about 3 days, there was only 50 of us that was able to fight. The rest was dead or wounded. The captain, he got wounded, and he sent word for me. So then he said, now it's all yours. He said, it's up to you. So I told men I had left there, I said, we'll go up that alley right there. I said, if we can get up that alley, I maybe we can get out of here. But before we got ready to go, they set up a machine gun right in the head of that alley. And so I told them, I said, now I'm not going to order you to go, but I'm going to go, and I'm going to try to take one or two of them with me. But I said, stay here, they'll probably kill us anyway. So they all decided they'd go. So I bunched them up in 10, and no more than they hit out there in that little alley till they was dead. The machine gun had mowed them down. Come my turn, this old boy here, he was praying. He was down to praying there. I picked his helmet up, put her back on his head, and I said, we ain't got time for that foolishness. I said, you got to get out of here. So I just walked through another door there. And he walked by me, it's his turn to go. He walked by me and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, don't worry, don't hate so bad. He said, I've done got the answer. He said, you walk out of here today, you fight another day. Well, he went out, and well, they didn't even want to hit the lead dead. So I was the last one. So I told him, I said, now there's 40 men laying there in the street. I said, I don't know whether they're all dead or not, but I said, going to hit right in between them. I said, I'll make a little bit of shelter for it, and maybe we can get one of them anyway behind that machine gun. So we hit her, nothing happened. So the guy raised my head up over them dead men laying there, and them fellas standing there with their hands up like that. Well, we went right on by them. Any other time I'd shot them or bayoneted them or done anything to them. But I don't know. That time I didn't. There was one fellow said, "You take us with you." Said, "We don't want to kill anymore." So we took them prisoners. We started down a railroad track after we got out there. And of course we was hungry, weak, and had nothing to eat for 3 days. And they'd fall down, and the boys fall down, and they'd say, "I can't go any farther." That's the further they can go. By that time, mortar shell had hit right close to them. Yep, out there, take off again. We went down there, and we finally run on to some of our men down there, and they had some old cheese. And I thought, boy, I was hungry enough I could eat anything, but I couldn't eat go them cheese. So they took us back to, it was on Christmas Eve. They took us back to where they was the officers having their supper that evening for Christmas. And they was having about everything. They gonna feed us some old frozen K rations. And I said to one other boy there, I said, "Let's get us the dark, let's get us a musket. We'll go through that line." And we went through that line. They never noticed it was dark. And we got that stuff, we eat all that stuff, and then made us sick. We've been a lot better off if we just eat some old frozen rations. Rough life. Rough.
Did you have family back at home that you were writing to and all?
Just my mother and dad and a young brother was all.
Did you have a problem like getting your mail or anything during that time?
Done pretty good, except after I got wounded. I didn't get any mail for I had a stack of mail. Picked that high when it finally caught up to me. And got out of when I got out of the hospital, my brother Creed, he got permission. He flew down to see me when I got out. There I hadn't been paid for 3 months, I believe it was, and so he wanted to go down. I told him, well, he'd have to foot the bill. I was broke. So he took me and another boy there to town. We down and had a few beers and come back, and I went down to the office, and when he got ready to leave, I told the captain to get somebody to take my brother back out to the airport. And he said, well, you take him. I said, I don't have no Army driver's license. And he said, well, you can drive, can't you? I said, yeah, I never drove nothing in my life. So he wrote me out the thing there, clear up to drive 10-ton wreckers. So I told my brother, I said, if you want to get there, you better drive or going out. So I watched, see just what he done, go out there. He got on the plane, and so when we started back, and I made it back all right, and just got back and got in the barracks, and here come an airplane, just right down over the top of us, and landed with all combat fellas been wounded in there. Boys, we hit the dirt and the floor and everything. And there was Creed, he flew over us right down low, scared I turned on to kill him.
And this was in England?
Yeah,
oh.
that was England. So that's, so I come back out of the Army then, that's the way you got your driver's license. If you had an Army driver's license, just send them in Charleston and get your license.
So how did you feel when you found out that the war in Germany was over?
Finally it's over.
Yeah.
Well, real pleased. I mean, unbelievable. Just hard to describe just how I did feel. I know it was a wonderful feeling. Know it was over with, know you was going to get to come home, and all. There's one thing that I wished I could tell people till they can understand, but there's no way. I'd just like to be able to tell what it's like the first time you run a bayonet through a man. I know he's your enemy, he'll kill you if you don't kill him, but it's still, first time gives you an awful feeling. I thought last time there was some way I could express what it was like. A feller said to me here, Ed Talbert here a while back down at the senior center, talking about they didn't fight nowadays like they did then. Then you had a lot of hand-to-hand combat then. He said, how did you make out? He said, I don't understand. He said, little as you are, and he said you had to fight some big fellers, didn't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, how'd you make out? How'd you do it? I said, well, I was well trained. I was little, I was fast, and I said I had the advantage over a big feller that was more slow than I was. But long to last there, they got to sending guys up there that only had just a very little bit of training, and you didn't know where you could trust them or anything about it, and that made it worse than ever. And I've seen some of them when battle get heavy. I've seen some of them just jumping, take off running back the other way. I've seen some of them get scared. They just jump up and take right at the enemy. You see all kinds of things like that.
So what was life like when you got home?
Well, it was nice getting home, but there was something different about it. You was used to a lot of people, a lot of something going on all the time, and you come home and there wasn't nothing doing. So I went to see my wife first, and it wasn't very long after I come out, so we got married after I come out. But other than the enjoyment of courtship, why, the rest of the time was kind of boring for me for a while. I got used to it. We got married and I went to work again, and things just kind of eased off along as you went. Got used to it.
So, looking back at your experiences now, how do you feel that changed you as an individual?
Changed my life.
Yeah, how do you feel it changed your life or changed your personality? Or
Well, one thing that it taught me to be functional. It taught me to respect others. And it taught me never to be late. I can't get over that. If I'm going to go anywhere where something, say like something, you like say you go to church, 10 o'clock, I've got to be there a little bit before 10. If I got to meet somebody somewhere, I've got to be there. I don't guess I'll ever get over that. But most people now don't think much about that. My wife, she don't think much about that. But I've got to be there. Whenever that time is, I've got to be there. That's the most changes in my life, and I know of. And it helped me in lots of ways, and ways it didn't. After I was wounded, and I got to drinking right smart. And after I come out of the Army, it helped forget. But then I was a driller drilled on old cable tools. Went down Jackson County down there and boarded down there. The woman said to me, she said, I'll tell you something. They said a good dose of salvation will cure anything. And I kind of laughed. So I found out though that she was right. After I got saved, I had no more use for liquor or anything like that. I give her all up. I saw a lot of good people in there, men, but after I was in there a while, they got to drinking and carousing around, and just kind of lost respect of themselves. I had one young man with me from Georgia. His name was Bullock, and he was 21 years old. He'd been married 3 times, and he said he was going to get married 7 times, and the 7th one he'd live with him. He's at 21 years old, been divorced 3 times.
Wow. But, well, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I was thinking there. Oh, that's about the most of it, I reckon.
Okay.
It's important. I hated to fight along with tanks. A lot of times tanks would go and you'd try to stay right close to them, you know. But they drawed so much artillery, I'd have rather went on their own than would. At one time, I'll tell you this, one time up there, we was dug in, and here come German tanks. I believe there were probably 15 of them. And I knew they wasn't looking for us. I knew they was going to hit their tanks off. I knew their tanks was coming up. I knew they was going to try to hit them off. And I was motioning for how far to get down their foxhole, you know. And that was a mistake, because they seen me. And of course they knew I was some kind of a manager, you know, giving orders of some kind. And so the old tank, he come right up over my foxhole and just twisted them old tracks on there. He just covered me up in there. Me and the other fellas in there with me. But the other fellas seen me there, and as soon as the tanks were on, they dug me out. But he had buried me alive, or then other guys hadn't seen and dug me out. They just took them old tracks and just covered me right up in there. Old Patton, now he was what they need today. He didn't care what it cost him as long as he got the glory for it. He was a glory man. He knew what he was doing, but that's all he cared for. Him and Montgomery was two different. Old Patton, he didn't care for nothing. And Montgomery, he was more of a cowardly person than compared to Patton. So I guess that's about all I got to say about the record.
Okay, well,